welcome back to my channel and to today's video where I am going to be tier ranking all of the books that I read in 2024. I read 100 books and so we have quite a bit to get through, so I'll do the setup stuff as quickly as I can and then let's get into the reviews. I have done this video for the last few years in a few different ways. In 2022 I did a tier ranking similar to this, and then in 2023 I got all of my books together in front of me and did a massive pile that I just worked my way down ranking them. I think this is going to be a little bit easier for me this year because I am genuinely not sure how I'm going to rank the books against each other, so this is going to be a little bit of an analysis time and for me to really reflect on my reading and how I want to rank the books. And also this year I have a MacBook. I've had it for a little while, but I have never really used all of the things it can do. And I worked out today I can screen record with a camera. So I'm giving that a go. It's very swish for me to do, but obviously if it doesn't work, let me know. So for the categories, I have got at the top new favourites. These is, likely going to be the 5-star reads, probably pretty self-explanatory. It's everything else that I think is going to be a bit harder. So next up I have a great time. These are probably the 4.5s, the 4s that I really enjoyed that I'd really recommend that you read. I have So Close Yet So Far, which is probably for the 3.5s or the books that I enjoyed, but more than fine, which is the next category, which is really what I mark my sort of generic 3 stars. Like, yeah, it was okay, it was fine, you might enjoy it, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it above all these other amazing books I read. Then I have Did I Read This? Because when you read 100 books you don't remember every book, so it's useful to have a category where I can just put in books that I'm did Kat read this? Then I have Disappointed. These are the 1 and 2 stars, the books that just made me sad. Made me sad this year, that were not for me, but I can acknowledge that there is a reader for every book. And then at the bottom I have Not Rating. I have quite a few books this year that I did not give a rating for various reasons, and so it felt appropriate for them to have their own category. The 100 books have all been loaded into the bottom of the screen. They're not in any particular order because they're just in the order that the tier ranker put them in, so we'll just deal with them in the order that they're there. First up we have Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang. This is definitely going in my new favourites. What an amazing book. I talk about it a lot more in my 2024 favourites video, so I won't rehash anything. Go and watch that video if you want to hear my full thoughts, but this is a great book. It's a great audio experience. It's really different to anything I've read. Love it. Then I have Royal Blood, which is one of the books in the Her Royal Spiners series by Rhys Bowen, which is a mystery series about Lady Georgiana, who is like 39th in line to be the Queen of England, so probably never going to be. She's really financially down on her luck, and she is kind of tasked by the Queen to do a series of tasks to sort of keep her status in the royal family, which end up with her ending in a lot of murders, to be honest. There's a lot of murders happen around her. I was really enjoying this series when it started. I am unfortunately enjoying it a lot less. The books are a little bit older, they're a little bit of their time, I guess. And there are some sort of like fattest comments and things like that. So at the moment I've soft DNF'd these series, which I'm gutted about because I really enjoy listening to these on audio. I also just kind of stopped really following them. So I'm going to stick this one in fine because I don't think this is the one that offended me. I would be reluctant to recommend this series at this point for those reasons, because even though it's like a 20 long series and it's clearly very beloved, but I'm just not sure I can recommend something that has fattest moments in it, to be honest. Next up we have The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson. I have 100 books to get through and I don't want this video to go on forever, so if I don't remember a book I'm probably not going to go over it in masses of detail so that I can spend time talking about the books I'm more opinionated on. This is a werewolf book. They are doctors. There is knotting and stuff in it. I'm going to put it in fine because I think it was fine. I'm not going to put it in Did I Read This because I do remember reading it, but I am just going to leave it in the fine category. But I think higher up than Royal Blood because I think it was probably better. Then we have Red String Theory, which I'm also going to stick in fine, but maybe at the bottom of fine. I got a lot of arcs from NetGalley, of which Fake Mate was one, and a lot of them were kind of on that 3-star territory. I thought I was going to love this because it had like elements of believing in fate and about how like these people are like tied together by red string. It includes an artist and how she kind of believes that she is maybe meant to be with this guy. There's a lot of cute ideas in it, just wasn't my favourite book ever. Then we have The Getaway List by Emma Lord, which I'm going to put in a great time. This is a YA. Emma Lord writes really good YAs, would really recommend. We have 2 characters in this one who are like best friends, and then one of the best friends has to move away. So the other best friend goes to visit them, and then they have this like list of things that they're going to complete to like really enjoy their time together. It's a really, really cute romance, like best friends to lovers. Adorable. Then we have Foxglove by Adalyn Grace, which is the second in the Belladonna series. I'm also going to stick this in a great time. I think I gave it 4 stars rather than 4.5, but I really enjoy this series. It's great on audio. It's about somebody called Signa who feels like she is completely followed by death. She's kind of put around loads of her different families' houses, and then she ends up being kicked out of all of them because everyone is convinced that death is following her. The final house that she goes to is her cousin Blythe, who is dying, and guess who turns up? I love it. It's so fun. And in the second one, we are following Signa and Death, but also Blythe and Fate. So I'm excited to see what happens in the third one, because there's kind of setting up of like the Blythe and Fate storyline. Next up, we have Skandar and the Phantom Rider, which I think is the second one in the Skandar series. I read 2 and 3 this year. I definitely enjoyed 3. I think the most out of all of them. The story is really starting to progress, but I'm just going to stick them both up in a great time because I think that these books are really fun. This is a middle grade fantasy series about Skandar, who is a human mortal, or so he believes, and every human on like the human island gets a chance to try the hatchery door when they're 13 to see whether they have a unicorn that's destined to be with them. And on Skandar's 13th birthday, he goes to try the hatchery door and then is basically warned away by somebody he doesn't know, who kind of takes him like through the back door, and then he ends up with a unicorn, but he didn't go through the hatchery door to get a unicorn, but is taken to the like unicorn island to become a unicorn rider. And so it's then about him working out, well, why was he not allowed to go through the hatchery door? Why is he kind of being singled out? His sister Kenna desperately wants to be a unicorn rider, but she was not able to hatch a unicorn when she went through the hatchery door exam a few years before Skandar. And so in number 2 and especially number 3, Kenna really starts to come forward in this story. It's a lot for a middle grade. There's a lot of really complicated things with like Skandar's family, his mom, his dad. It's great. The audiobook experience is really good. The audiobook narrator does a great job at narrating the different characters. Really recommend. As I say, the third one I do prefer to the second one, but I think I'll just keep them together for this ranking. Then we unfortunately have some disappointments, my friends. So we have the Sad Ghost Club 3 and the Sad Ghost Club 2. Sad Ghost Club 2 disappointed me more than 3, I believe, so we'll go with them that way round. But I was so gutted. I mean, I was gutted not to like number 1. It's just I read it in a different year. This is a graphic novel series about a sad ghost who's like incredibly depressed and alone, and then is looking for other ghosts to become friends with. And I should have enjoyed this, like, as a sad ghost myself, I should have enjoyed this. But what happens is SG finds this other sad ghost called Socks, and basically tries to like force them to become their friend, forces them to become more extroverted and to spend time at parties. And I'm like, if I was Socks, I would not want to spend any time with SG. The like intensity of this friendship just made me feel really uncomfortable. I think the feeling it's supposed to give you is like, oh, cute, these, ghosts have found each other. That's not how I felt. As an extreme introvert, that's not how I felt. And just number 2 really, really leans in on that. Number 3 was slightly better, but I was just like, I'm glad to have read these, and now there's going to be a number 4. And I've DNF'd the series. I'm obviously not going to read number 4. I was very glad to sell them, and I'm sure somebody else will love them. This is a really beloved series. This is a controversial opinion, but I just didn't. Not for me. We then have Spare Room, which I believe I read as an arc, and I think it's about somebody moving into somebody's spare room. I'm going to have to put this in Did I Read This, friends? Because it has not stayed with me. I think I probably gave it 3 stars, but it hasn't stayed with me, unfortunately. And I have Fool Me Once by Ashley Winstead. I love this book. Again, I speak about it in my favourites of 2024, so check that out. But if you like a romance with quite a bit of politics, and this one is particularly, it's got quite a fiery main character who goes on a real redemption arc because she makes some mistakes in her relationship with her ex, and then this is about them potentially getting back together. I thought it's really well done. Ashley Winstead is an excellent writer. I've not read her thrillers, but I really like her romances. The second one in this series, The Boyfriend Candidate, is also great. Next up is Skyward, which is a graphic novel series about basically like what happens when gravity is taken away. The art was really beautiful. It's a really fun story, and I would really like to carry on the series, but I think I'm going to put it in So Close Yet So Far because I don't have a very clear memory of what happened in it, even though I'm very interested in continuing. Then we have The Love Wager by Lynn Painter. This is going in disappointing, but it can go at the top. I wish I got the Lynn Painter hype, but unfortunately, her writing is just not for me. This is the second in a series, and I really remember the first one because it's about a girl called Liv who is just, in my opinion, completely unlikable and immature, and I just couldn't get on board with it. This one, is it about her brother? I think it's about her brother, and I don't actually remember a lot about this one, but I know I did not enjoy it and I was very disappointed to not enjoy it, so there it can go. Next up we have Shades of Grey by Jasper Fforde, which is one of my favourite books of all time. This was a reread for me and I talk about it in my top reads video, so do check it out. It's a dystopian future where there is a hierarchy split by the amount of colour that you can see. We follow a guy called Eddie who can see red, which is pretty close to the top but not quite, so he needs to marry a purple so that he can move up the social hierarchy, but he ends up being sent away to a different town and finding a grey who's at the bottom and realises that maybe he likes this grey instead. It's so unique, it's so funny. The sequel, Red Side Story, is somewhere in here and we'll talk about that when we get there. But Shades of Grey, peak. Next up we have Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, which I'm going to put in no rating because I just did not know how to rate this book. It is about a character called Eleanor who we learn through the book has had basically a lot of trauma happen to her, which is why she approaches life in a certain way. I felt like I was reading a book about a real person to the point where I felt uncomfortable, which I think is how the author wanted us to feel. But I just came out of the book being like, I don't know how to rate this. And I don't know whether that's because I think it's a masterpiece or because it made me so uncomfortable I didn't enjoy it. I think it is a really good book and I think you should read it because it will really challenge your perception of what you think of somebody who maybe approaches life or behaves differently to you. And it really is that like epitome of you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. But I didn't feel that I could give it a rating because it just felt so real, so I didn't rate it. Next up we have The Love Report, which is a graphic novel. I'm going to stick this in disappointed as well. I didn't rate this one, or if I did, I think I gave it 2 stars, but originally I didn't rate it because it is a middle grade graphic novel and I do read a fair amount of books that are not for my age group, but there are some times if I really don't enjoy something where I feel bad giving it a rating on Goodreads because who am I to say that this book would not be enjoyed by the audience it's actually meant for. This is a translated from French graphic novel, basically following some kids at school, and love came into it in some way. I think that the art is absolutely beautiful and I hope that this book will find a middle grader at some point. I do have this book listed on my Vinted and I will have a link to my Vinted down below for any books I'm unhauling that haven't been sold yet. You can check those out. That I do think for the right audience this book would probably be great. And the thing is, it's not that I don't enjoy other middle grade or children's books. Like Heartstopper is my favourite series of all time and I'm not the target audience for Heartstopper. That is why I give these books a go. Next up we have So Now Go Tell, which is a book by my mum's friend and somebody who I know really well. So I decided not to rate it because it just, felt a little bit too close to home. It's also not a book in a genre that I typically read. So it's a mystery thriller with a Shakespeare element to it because Sue, who wrote it, is a doctor of Shakespeare, which is very cool. She's a very cool person. And so what she's done is she's written a sort of more mainstream thriller that with Shakespeare elements in it. It's a really unique idea. It was really quite scary at times, to be honest, and I do not like scary books. So it took me a little while to get through because I was like, I don't want to keep reading this, I'm so scared. But if that sounds like your kind of thing, maybe go and check that out. Next up we have Bride by Ali Hazelwood. One of my favourite books, talk about it in the favourites video. This is a vampire werewolf forced marriage book with, in typical Ali style, an absolutely wonderful like book boyfriend in Low who is, he's just exceptional. And it's different to her other books because it's not STEM, it's a vampire werewolf setting, and I think there's a lot of lore in this and she handles that so well, and I can't wait for the second one. It's obviously going in new favourites, but I've not thought about how I'm going to rank my favourite books of the year, to be honest, and I don't know where I'm going to put this. I think I liked it more than Fool Me Once. Do I like it more than Shades of Grey? That's really difficult because I have reread Shades of Grey multiple times. Like, this is a book that I know much more intimately than most of the books on this list. I'll leave it there for now, but I'm not sure how I feel about that. Next up we have The Abandoned Empress, which I'm putting at the absolute bottom of disappointed. I gave this book 1 star. I'm not sure I gave any other books 1 star. This is a manga or a manhwa or a graphic novel, I'm not sure, about an empress who is sold off to a really disgusting guy. Like, and that was really my issue with this book. The art is stunning. The front cover of this is one of the prettiest front covers I own because it has like hollow foil on it. But the guy, if you like a bully romance, I think you will enjoy this. I just cannot get on board with a bully romance. I can't enjoy books that would make any people think that they should be in a relationship with a man like that. So absolute 1 star for me, and I would have DNF'd if it wasn't short. Then we have The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Danon, and this book did disappoint me, but I'm going to put it in the fine category because I did enjoy it more than some of the other books in that section. This is the sequel to The Roommate, which I did really enjoy, and this book is just very different despite being in the same series. In The Roommate, we have Clara and Josh, who are like a really unlikely couple, and Josh shows Clara basically how to have sex. He's an ex-sex worker, kind of, and he shows Clara, basically how to have good sex as a woman, and then they make this website where they like teach women how to have good sex. And Naomi is another sex worker who's really good friends with Josh and his ex-girlfriend. And I thought that the second one was going to be really focused on like her, well, it is focused on Naomi, but it basically is about her promoting sex and relationships at a Jewish synagogue for reasons I can't quite remember. I think because the synagogue's going to shut down, and so the rabbi like convinces Naomi to come and do talks there. There's not a lot of sex in this one, as opposed to like sex is the major focus of the first one. There's a lot less in this one. It's a lot more about Naomi dealing with she was Jewish and now how Jewish is she and how does she feel about that. And it was just a different type of book, and so I didn't enjoy it as much as The Roommate, but glad to have read it and to have finished that series, I think. I don't know if she's bringing out any more. Naughty and Nice, obviously we've already spoken about, so I'm going to put it in disappointed, but like ultimately this is the series that I would carry on. If I was asked which of the disappointed ones would you continue, it is that one. So I think I'll put it higher up, even though I genuinely was quite upset by this particular one in the series. And we have One Summer in Santorini, which I read while we were on honeymoon. I only read 2 books while I was on honeymoon, and we were away for 2 weeks. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm pretty sure that this is the one I didn't enjoy, so I'm gonna stick this in disappointed. I think I rated it lower than The Love Wager, if I remember. Not that my ratings on Goodreads necessarily translate, to be honest, to my rankings, but I think I did rank it a bit lower. I don't remember much about it. It was about a woman who was like really looking for a new life, and so she ended up going on like a boat trip around Santorini. I don't remember why I hated this one, but I really didn't like it. Oh, there was a love triangle in it. I'm just reading my review. There was a love triangle, and that was what I didn't enjoy. I said it was particularly like a love letter to Greece, which I remember it was. But yeah, there was a love triangle, and I said I didn't know there was one going in, and if I had, I wouldn't have kept reading. I think it's because she meets this guy right at the beginning, and then there's this other guy, Josh, I think they're always called Josh, who she meets on the boat, and then it was like the constant back and forward of like who would she get with, and it was a lot of back and forward. And then I said I wished I had DNF'd at the aggressive anti-teetotalers nonsense, but kept reading because ultimately I wanted to know who she chose. But yeah, it was like very anti, like not drinking, and as a non-drinker for life, I have never drunk alcohol. That obviously upset me. Then we have The Catch by Amy Lee, which I think I'll stick at the top of fine, and this is a disappointing fine because I love the first 2 in this series. It's like an influencer series. The first one we have Crystal, who's a sports influencer, and then in the second one we have her sister, who's a book influencer, and then in this one Mel is like a fashion and beauty influencer, and she agrees to go to this hotel to basically try and like boost the reviews of it. The guy that the woman that runs it, I think, is the aunt, and then there's her nephew there, and he's really grumpy, and so they don't get on immediately, but then he's completely obsessed with her because she's beautiful, and he takes her fishing at one point. It was very like middle of the road Grumpy Sunshine. I think it was Grumpy Sunshine, or at least he was definitely grumpy, with some miscommunication in there, and the other 2 are so much better in this series, so it was disappointing. But you know, I would still read anything else by Amy Lee. Then we have Leading Man, which I think I'm going to have to put in Did I Read This? Because I do remember reading it, but I literally couldn't tell you what it was about. I think the guy was called Justin, but maybe the author's name is Justin. And it's about a man who he's in a gay relationship with somebody, and it's trying to work out like if he's going to be his own person, I think. I gave it 3 stars, but I don't remember it. Then we have Richard Osman's The Man Who Died Twice. So I read all of the books in the Thursday Murder Club series. This is a series I really prioritised finishing, and I thought it was done. And that's why I pushed through, and it's not done. And I don't love this series as much as everyone else. I think in part, so I listened to these exclusively on audiobook, and the first 2 are narrated by Lesley Manville. And I love Lesley Manville's narration. She captures Joyce's voice in particular perfectly. The second 2 I think are narrated by Fiona Shaw, and her voice is just quite different, and unfortunately I do not enjoy that as much. So I will caveat that by I think I've been affected by the audio experience. But also I think it's just gone on too long. Part of what is to love about these, and I think it really comes across in book 1 and 2, is the like Britishness, and I found those elements really funny. I don't find them as quirky, and I don't think they exist as much by book 4. The plot is like really focused on a drug plot, and that personally doesn't interest me, but it is the real focus. And so I found it as we've gone on, it's a lot harder to enjoy, and I will read the 5th one, but I was happy when I thought this series was done. So The Man Who Died Twice, because I'm pretty sure that's the second one, I'm going to put at the top of So Close Yet So Far, because this was a 4-star read, and then we'll see where the others are later on. Then we have the run of the Christmas novellas. So in order to reach my 100 books this year, I had to read a lot of novellas, and I'm not proud of that, and we'll address it for 2025, but I did have to read a lot of novellas. So let me try and remember what these ones are about. So Cruel Winter with You, I'm going to stick at A Great Time, and I'm going to stick it at the top of Great Time. This was the one by Ali Hazelwood, and I love Ali. This was a friends to lovers romance where the girl basically feels like she was meant to like love this guy or be friends with this guy from the day he was born. And I read a review that was like, this is literally like Jacob and Renesmee, and it's ruined my enjoyment somewhat, but I enjoyed it when I read it. Pick up at the modern day, we see these two and they're like forced back together, and then it's about them realizing that maybe like they should be together. And it was Ali. It was really well written. There was a lot of depth for a novella. We got a lot of backstory. Ali writes a really good novella, in my opinion. She understands that we need back his story in order to be able to get on board. Then we have Merry Ever After, which I'm pretty sure is the Tessa Bailey one, and I did really enjoy this one. We have this woman who works in a shop. She has a baby. She's quite like down on her luck. She really wants to be a fashion designer, but she has not been able to do that because she is like raising this baby on her own. And then this massive guy walks into the shop and wants to buy some jeans but can't because none will fit him. And so she basically says she'll custom make him some jeans. He is so like embarrassed. He really fancies her. But he's not good at interacting with people. He's so embarrassed about this. He's like, no. She thinks that he's saying this, that he doesn't believe in her, or like it seems like sparks are flying, but then he hears the baby crying and she's like, oh my God, he doesn't want to be with me because of the baby. She like storms up to his house with the baby in completely inappropriate shoes and is like, I made you these jeans. And then they let the baby lie on the sofa and have sex while the baby's sleeping. And like, it's typical Tessa Bailey, okay? It's typical Tessa Bailey. It's really steamy. Given that it's a short novella, there's a lot of Tessa's famous steamy scenes in there. There's a little too much daddy language for me, to be honest, but like, this was a good time. I think I'm gonna put it in A Great Time, you know? Like, I'm not sure what I've rated them, because like, I get in my head about what I should rate books, to be honest, but I think it's A Great Time, so that's where we're going to put it in this ranking today. Then we have Merriment and Mayhem, which I think is the Alexandra Bellefleur one, which is about a character who is like really unlucky, and she sets her grandma dies and she's living in her grandma's house, and the oven sets on fire, and so the firemen are called, and the fireman instantly fancies her, and then they kind of like keep running into each other, and he like puts up Christmas lights for her and things. So I thought this one was good, but I would have liked a full novel of it. We didn't get enough time with the characters for me to really enjoy the story, so unfortunately I felt it was a bit disappointing for that reason. But I think because I recently read it, there is some recency bias happening here. It's almost like I'm giving it a higher rating because if it was a novel, I think I would have really enjoyed it, but it wasn't a novel, was it? But if you were going to ask me to reread any of them, that's the one I'd pick. So we'll go with that. Then we have All by My Elf, which is the Olivia Dade one, which is about this woman who's like in love with her co-worker. They're researchers. She's in love with him, but she doesn't want to tell him. And the two of them and another friend go on this road trip together to work as elves for Christmas, selling food, I think. And she is convinced that he's in love with the best friend because he sees them like gossiping. She sees them gossiping in the back seat. Then they drop the friend off at her parents' house for Christmas. The two of them have to spend Christmas together in the van. They have to like huddle together for warmth, and then they realise, oh, actually, maybe they have feelings for each other and they should have just communicated about it. It was very cute. The guy was like very, you know, was cute, like, you know, book boyfriend material. I think I'll probably still just stick it in fine, but I think above Merriment and Mayhem because I think it worked well enough in novella form, probably slightly better than Merriment and Mayhem. Then we have Only Santa's in the Building, which is where this girl has moved into an apartment, I think also because her grandma's died, and she sees her like very attractive neighbour on like when they move in, but she doesn't have the guts to speak to him. And then she's a comic book artist and she's working on a deadline, and somebody's leaving like cute Christmas decorations on her door, and she's convinced that it's the like cute friends, older friends who live upstairs. She finishes the deadline, she agrees to go to this party, and she dresses up in a Santa outfit, and it's got like Only Murders in the Building vibes, but no murders. And at the party, the hot guy is there, and then they chat a bit and then realise they like each other, and they start making out under the mistletoe and then like go back to her apartment. Yeah, it was cute. Again, I think I probably just needed a full novel of it. I think I rated it the lowest of all of them, but on reflection, I think I liked it more than Merriment and Mayhem. It's very hard with the novellas. There is absolute recency bias there as well. Like, are these all better than those full-length books? I don't know. We have I'm Kinda Chubby and I'm Your Hero, which is a cute graphic novel about a guy who's trying to have an acting career, but he feels like he's not good enough, and he gets these anonymous gifts from somebody that turns out to be this fan who works at a bakery, and he makes him really cute baked goods. Again, I'm going to stick this in fine, but I think I might put it at the end because if there was a sequel, well, there is a sequel, I'm not going to read it. I just don't see the point in there being a sequel. I don't see where this story would go. I thought it was going to be a romance and it just wasn't. I'm guessing it might lead to that, but I think I read the reviews of the second one and it doesn't. And that is just not satisfying to me. I just almost was like, what is the point of this graphic novel, to be honest? And we have The Comeback by Lily Chu, which I listened to on audio. These are free on Audible, so if you have an Audible subscription, like all of Lily Chu's books are free on there, I believe. So I'm pretty sure that's how I've ended up with them. And this is about a girl who works as a lawyer, and she has like never been out of Canada. She's never really done anything with her life other than become a lawyer. She has a really strained relationship with her sister, who she believes has kind of been able to go off and live her life while she's been like pressured by the family to become a lawyer. She turns up one night at her apartment, and her friend who she lives with forgets to tell her that she's let her cousin live there, crash on the couch. While she thinks he's broken into my house, is immediately attracted to him. And her friend, who I think is called Hannah, says to her, oh, I'm really sorry, he's had a breakup, he needs to stay with us for a bit. And they spend some time with our main character, like showing him Canada and like introducing him to it. And then we find out a secret about him. And so the actual main plot of the story, which doesn't happen until about halfway through, is about, oh, how am I going to adjust to this like major piece of information that I found out about this guy who I was really falling for, but now I don't really know who he is. I think this is fine. Is that just like the definition of me? This book is fine. I thought this book was fine, but I think, or maybe put it less than the novellas, but I think it was probably better than The Catch. And I also listened to, I don't know what it's called, but I listened to another book by Lily Chu. It's like a Princess and the Pauper retelling. And I didn't really like Philippa Sue's, who from Hamilton, Eliza in Hamilton. I didn't really like her narration of that one, but I did prefer her narration of this one, so I think it deserves to be a bit higher. Then we have Michael Ball's biography, which I'm going to put maybe there. So if you don't know, Michael Ball is an actor in the UK, predominantly in musicals, and this was mostly about his journey of putting on the musical Aspects of Love twice in his life, back when he was first cast in it when he was young, and then putting it on a couple of years ago. It's not a musical that I particularly like. I should caveat. Like, I love musicals, but I'm not particularly interested in Aspects of Love. It's not a musical that I didn't go and see this production of it with Michael Ball. But interspersed between the Aspects of Love journey is like Michael Ball's journey into becoming a musical theatre UK sensation. That was very interesting. I learned a lot about backstage stuff. But honestly, I don't like some elements of Michael Ball. I think he's really horrible about some of his cast members. He makes some comments about like the Cinderella musical that Carrie Hope Fletcher was in, because he had dinners with Andrew Lloyd Webber where apparently Andrew was really honest with him about how terrible it was all going. And that just felt like, well, that's not your story to tell. So it made some bits of it were uncomfortable, but he was quite a good audiobook narrator and there were like interesting elements to it. Then we have Rosie and the Dreamboat. So this is the other novellas that Amazon released, where there are 6 of them which were released for Valentine's Day, which I've just got confused about which one this is, but I'm gonna stick this towards the end of Fine, I think. Basically have Rosie, who is considered to be really unlucky. Her sister is not unlucky, and she takes her sister to a spa, and her sister has this like amazing day, and Rosie ends up like trapped in a machine, completely locked in there, and the fireman is like talking to her through it, and it's cute, but it just is not long enough. We don't get enough. Maybe I'll move it a little bit higher, but it is recency bias, I think, but we just don't get enough time to like have Rosie and the fireman having a relationship. And it's like, it's cute because it sort of challenges, you're like, the fireman falls in love with Rosie having never met her, but I would have just liked more time or more exploration of these two being together. Next we have Belle of the Ball, which is a graphic novel, and I gave this 4 stars at the time. The art's really cute. It's like pink. It's basically a pink colour scheme, but honestly, I'm gonna have to put it in Did I Read This, because I could not tell you right now what is in that graphic novel, and I realized this the other day and I was like, I might have to unhaul that because I just don't remember. I think it's about there is a love triangle in there, I believe, with a character who like is basically trying to find themselves to like be with the really attractive cheerleader, but the cheerleader is dating the like head of like the captain of the football team. But beyond that, I don't remember what happens. Then we have True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. I'm going to move it to the bottom of A Great Time because I remember that I enjoyed it. It's the sequel to The Soulmate Equation, which I really loved. I need to up that book to a 5-star, I think, because I really enjoyed The Soulmate Equation, where a guy creates a dating app that's like basically based on your DNA and determines that they can work out who your love match is based on your DNA scores. This one is about that main character, I think her name is Jess's best friend, Fliss. Is it Fliss or Flick or something like that? She is a romance author who's basically just like run out of romance ideas. And does she go back and like find some previous men to go out with, or she ends up agreeing to a dating show, I think, where she's then going to go out with previous exes and then she ends up dating the producer or something like that. You can tell I don't really remember, but enough that I remember it was a good time. Then we have The Exception to the Rule by Christina Lauren, which is the, in my opinion, best of all of the novellas in this Amazon series, the Valentine's and the Christmas one combined. I love this book. We basically have these 2 characters who meet by an accidental email, and then we follow them over 10 years of emailing each other. And then when I thought that was going to be the end of the novella, we then end up moving into real life and seeing what happens from there. I was squealing. I was so excited by it. It was just so adorable and worked so well in a novella format. As much as I would have loved a whole book, and I think this could have been a whole book, the novella format still worked really well. It was great. Fully recommend. And you can read it for free if you have Amazon Prime on Prime Reading, as with all of the other Amazon novellas. Then we have We Can't Keep Meeting Like This by Rachel Lynn Solomon, which is a YA romance about these 2 teens who work for 2 businesses that mostly operate in weddings, and like their parents keep running into each other at the weddings and they start to develop feelings for each other. The female main character tells the guy how she feels about him in a letter right before he goes to college. He never responds, and he goes and she doesn't see or hear from him for a year, and then he comes back and she's like, dude, where have you been? I confess my love for you. And so it's also, you know, he was really struggling at uni and there's a lot of like realities there. So I think this is, you know, a good book, and I think I'm going to put it in So Close Yet So Far because I read that really quite a while ago and apparently quite a lot of it has stuck with me, so that's pretty good going, despite the fact it only got a 3.5 at the time, I think. Then we have the Abby Jimenez novella in the Valentine's series. This is the first book I've read by Abby Jimenez. I would really love to read some of her full-length novels. I think based on what I've heard about Abby Jimenez, the novella is in the same sort of frame where it actually, given it was a Valentine's romance, did not have a lot of love in it. It was really about this woman whose grandma was dying, and she's a like hospice care nurse, and so she's used to like nursing people to their death, but now she's having to do it for her own grandma. It was so tragic. And then the guy has had like a disastrous relationship breakup. It's about him kind of adjusting to that, and then they don't meet for nearly all of the novella, and it's very, very sad in many places, and there's basically no romance. And so I didn't not enjoy it. I just think if we'd had a full novel, Abby would have then had the space for some romance in it. So I'm going to put it in fine, but I think I will probably still put it maybe slightly less than Rosie and the Dreamboat. Hard to say. Very well written book, just not really a romance, which is what, you know, I thought it was going to be. Then we have, I've been listening to the Worst Witch series. So I don't know if the Worst Witch really went beyond the UK, but this is really a series from my childhood. We have Mildred Hubble, who is the worst witch at school. She's always getting into trouble. And it's basically a series of books with her, that happening with her getting into various scrapes. And I loved this series as a child. The Worst Witch All at Sea was my personal favourite, which is number 4. There's a TV show which I loved the TV show. I've rewatched it so many times, so I really enjoyed this. I didn't rate them on Goodreads because it just felt a bit like odd to rate them, but I'm gonna stick them in a great time because I've really enjoyed listening to the audiobooks for these. They're narrated by Gemma Arterton, and whilst I don't think they're quite as great as when I originally listened to them with like the audiobook narrator back when I was young, I still think that these books are great. We then have If You'll Have Me, which is another graphic novel that I think I gave 4 stars and will now have to just stick in Did I Read This, because I don't remember anything about it. I know that Alice Oseman really likes it, and I think it's about a character who, in similar to Belle of the Ball, is like trying to find herself and is trying to get this like attractive person to fall in love with her, and then they do or something. But yeah, I as I say, with that and Belle of the Ball, I gave them 4 stars. I really enjoyed them at the time. They just haven't stuck with me. We've got another Worst Witch there, so I think I'm probably just gonna throw them all up together. That is the original Worst Witch, so actually let's put that higher than Strikes Again. Okay, then we have With Any Luck, which is the novella by Ashley Poston. It's my first Ashley Poston, and I can't wait to read full-length novellas by her. This is great. This is, in my opinion, the second best of the novellas, so I'm gonna stick that above even my girl Ali, because this is another one where we have a lot of story despite it being a novella. We have a character whose name is Luck. The guy called Luck, and I can't remember what the girl is called, but like their names are like quite punny for the story, and they are a maid of honor and a best man, but like the other way around, so like best woman and maid of whatever, man of honor, for their best friends who are getting married. They've met once before and they had this like really passionate night of sex, but you know, it didn't go anywhere, and now they have not been told by their best friends, oh actually, like, you're gonna have to see each other again because you're going to be committed to the wedding. And they go, that, you know, they're obviously super annoyed about it, but you know, it happens. There's a lot of sexual tension there. The main female character, she is like very, very lucky in everything other than romance. And it was just a really like interesting take on things. And she basically wouldn't kiss the guy when they had this like passionate night of sex together, because she believes that, and it's happened like 13 times in her life, that when she kisses a guy she really likes, the day after he will find his soulmate. And so she doesn't want to kiss him because she really likes him, but also she's like, you can't have my luck, like I don't want to lose you too, kind of thing. And then it doesn't go anywhere anyway. But when they're reunited, they organise the hen and the stag, and they go off and do those, and then the next morning they've lost the groom, and our female main character has to rope in the like man of honor to help her to find the groom. And there was just so much story. It was a really like interesting concept. I really enjoyed it. Really excellent writing, very witty, yeah, really great. Would definitely recommend. Then we have Royal Valentine. These are the two weakest, in my opinion, of the Valentine's novellas, and I think probably overall. Royal Valentine is by like Soraya Wilson. I've not read any other books by this author. This is about like a royal princess who convinces her PA, executive assistant, to swap places with her because they look really similar, so that she can have some freedom in Italy, because she's like obsessed with this photographer that she sees. And then she accidentally takes too much medicine, gets knocked out, and she's like found by the photographer and taken back to his apartment, but she's convinced he's in a relationship with the other person in the apartment, but still wants to have a good day with him. They go around Italy and do like touristy things, all the while developing feelings for each other. And then it turns out he's got a secret as well. Like, it's fine. It's fine. It just, like, I really didn't love the writing style of this one. Where am I gonna put it? Maybe at the bottom of fine. Like, I still think it's fine. I still think it's worth reading. I just think it's the weakest one. And then we also have Drop, Cover and Hold On by Jasmine Guillory. This is the second book I've read by Jasmine. I just don't like Jasmine's writing, so I know that now. Like, I was quite sure of that after the first book I read by her, but I just know it for definite now. This is about female main character who's convinced that this baker hates her, but she still wants to go into the bakery because his baked goods are so good. And then on the day that we kind of meet her, she's going to go in there and confront him about it. But there's an earthquake and she gets trapped in the bakery with him, and then finds out that maybe she just misjudged him. This is like miscommunication on another level, this one, to be honest. But does have a very well written steamy scene, which I'm actually not sure any of the others did. So it can get a little bit of a boost from me for that reason. I'll maybe stick it above Red String Theory, which I'm realising the longer this goes on, I don't remember as much as I want to. No Place Like LA, I have just read, so there is going to be a little bit of recency bias here, to be honest. This is a novella in the Christmas Notch series by Jill Murphy and Sierra Simone, which is a really, really steamy series about sex workers who are working on like Hallmark Christmas movies. The first one took me quite a while to get through. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. It's obviously got well-written, steamy scenes, but it just went on too long. This one, in theory, has the opposite problem because it's a novella. This one is following two of the younger male characters. The steamy scenes were excellent in this. This is the first time I've actually read steamy scenes that are this detailed for a gay couple, so that was like very interesting for me to read, and it was really well handled. These characters are like around 24, they're quite immature, there is a real lack of communication. This is quite a long novella, and I thought it was going to be shorter. We go through quite a few breakups in this, and I just was like, I don't think these two should be together. They're breaking up too many times. But it's very well written, so I'm gonna maybe stick it kind of in the middle of that fine tier. Again, recency bias is coming in a little bit here, but I think it maybe was still more enjoyable than The Cat. That feels kind of ridiculous to say though, because I really did find them frustrating. Oh, it doesn't matter. Then we have The Worst Witch All at Sea, which, as I say, is my favourite of the Worst Witches, so I'll make sure to put that one there. Then we have The Martian by Andy Weir, so I'm going to put this up in my new faves. I talk about it a lot in the favourites video. This is a book where I rated it 4 stars originally, then upped it to 4.5 a couple of days ago, and then 5 this morning, because I realised that was when I filmed my 2024 favourites video for Real Time Cat. And I just felt like I couldn't do my favourites video without that book featuring. I do not think this is the best written book of all time in any way, but the vibes are really good, and it's a really interesting story about basically a guy who gets trapped on Mars, and so you spend a lot of time with this one guy, so you have to obviously really like him, and I did find him really interesting to like be in the head of. And the audiobook is narrated by Will Wheaton, who I think did a really good job with the Mark Watney stuff. I don't think he does as good a job with when we're like back in the like world with everybody else, but I think the writing also suffers there. So whilst I think this is the weakest written book of the favourites category, it's a really fun time and one I would really recommend. We then have Red Side Story, which is the sequel to Shades of Grey by Jasper Fforde. We've waited 10 years for this and it was not worth it. I'm gonna have to stick it in disappointed. I'll stick it at the top of disappointed because I will carry on with the series, but this book just lost its way. I think it was just maybe trying to do too many things, or it just lost its track a little bit, and when you've been waiting 10 years for a sequel and it's disappointing, it hurts. Then we have Ant and Dec Once Upon a Time, which was another biography that I listened to. I actually listened to this while we were on honeymoon. This was like very interesting, especially as Ant's had quite a difficult life. He's dealt a lot with like drugs and alcohol, and he had to go to rehab and stuff. So I thought that was good, and they handled it well, but also quite lightly, but you can really tell these two are really good friends. Yeah, I think it was a good time. I'll put it like near the Michael Ball one, I guess. I enjoyed it more than the Michael Ball one though. And we have Icebreaker, which I really enjoyed, by Hannah Grace. I'm gonna stick that, I think, probably at the top of a great time. I rated this 4.5 stars. This is about Stassi and Nate, and Stassi is an ice skater and something happens on the rink which means that they can't use her rink and she has to share a rink with the hockey team. She finds Nate super annoying but very attractive. There is a lot of sex positivity. There's a lot of really steamy scenes that are really good. There's also a whole plot line with Stassi's like ice skating partner who's really manipulative and convincing her that she's too fat and things like that. There's a lot in this book. I really enjoyed it. I think Hannah Grace is a great writer. Really enjoyed. And it's followed by Wildfire, which I didn't enjoy as much, but I think I will put at the top of So Close Yet So Far, because I would still really recommend this book. It's a summer camp romance about one of the like quieter hockey players. I do think you need to read these in order because there's a real like found family with the ice hockey players especially, and they are featured a lot in the second book, like characters we've met in book one. Russ is a really likeable character. He's had a really difficult life. He has a difficult relationship with his dad in particular. That was handled well. Rory, it's a little bit frustrating sometimes. She's a little bit immature, but she acknowledges that and deals with it, and I think Hannah handles that really well. So yeah, good time. We have another Worst Witch book here, so I'll throw this one up with the other. And we have Once in a Leap Year. I think I'm gonna have to put this in Did I Read This, because I know it's centered around leap years over like somebody's like a long time, like leap year birthdays where their like official birthday is once every 4 years. I know that featured in it, but that is all I can tell you. And we have Night Shift by Annie Crown. This was a fun book. I'll put it maybe at the end of a great time. I did not realize this was going to be what this book was. I thought this was going to almost be like a cute High School Musical retelling, but actually we're like in steamy scenes from like the beginning of the book. It's basically this librarian who a footballer walks in one day and is like, you're super attractive, and like they have sex in the library, and then it's about them kind of figuring out if they can have a relationship beyond that. I don't remember masses about it, but I really did have a good time with it. I read it really quickly, and I would definitely pick up more books by Annie Crown, and the cover of this is one of my favorites ever. And we have Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood, which is a novella which I listened to on audio. I did not realize we were getting this on ebook in 2025, and I wish I'd waited because I didn't like the audiobook narrator, so that was a shame. This is about two like people who work for rival game companies, and they don't get on because of a miscommunication thing, but it's typical Ali Hazelwood STEM, to be honest. It's just shorter. There's a miscommunication thing that happens. They believe that they hate each other, or at least like the girl believes that the man hates her, and then it turns out he probably doesn't. It was typical Ali. I liked the game setting. I think I'm going to put it at the end of So Close Yet So Far, because as I say, I do think that the audiobook slightly ruined my experience for this. Then we have Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is, I think it's set in the same universe as Evelyn Hugo or Carrie Soto. I think that, to be honest, they're all set in the same universe, but somebody specifically said 2 of them were in the same universe. This is about a family who have quite a complicated history of like the dad sleeps around a lot, and so the siblings are all kind of forced to be a family together. The mum has extreme depression because of that, and the siblings have to kind of like find their own way, and they either sink or swim. And there's like some rivalry between the brothers because they're in love with the same woman, and the like eldest sister is the one we follow mostly, and she's basically gone from like nothing to being this like really famous supermodel swimwear. I really love Taylor Jenkins books. They all make you feel like these characters are real. I really enjoy the audiobook experiences for these. So yeah, this was really good. I'm gonna put it quite high up, to be honest, in a great time, maybe below Skandar. I think I rated The Getaway List higher, so let's go with that. Then we have Romantic Killer, which is about a girl who, does she fall into a video game and then ends up with these like 2 attractive men? It was a short time, but a good time. I'll put it, I definitely enjoyed it more than some of these, but maybe around there. I think I'm going to swap those. I really don't remember much about Fake Mate, so I think I'm going to swap those. Then we have Maybe in Another Life, which is also by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is about a couple who, there's like a night, which is a night that they are together, which is kind of like splits into multiverses where they can either stay together or split up, and it follows the like different pathways of what could have happened based on the decision that they make that night. Very interesting, really unique idea for a story. I didn't enjoy it as much as the other Taylor Jenkins reads. I think it's probably my least favourite of them, but I did still really enjoy it, so I think I'll put it after Foxglove. Then we have Unfortunately Yours by Tessa Bailey. This is the second in the, I don't know what the series is called, actually, but this is a very steamy romance because it's Tessa about Natalie. She's having quite a difficult time, and she then meets this like really attractive guy who like helps her with the vineyard, or they have a night of passion, and then she doesn't think she'll see him again because he's super infuriating. She doesn't want to see him again. She ends up having to see him again. It was fun. I just think that there are some elements of like, this was a really toxic relationship, and I don't particularly like reading toxic relationships, but I think I will probably still put it at the end of So Close Yet So Far, because ultimately it's Tessa, so it's well written. I always underestimate how long these videos take to film. Right, let's keep going. So Loveless by Alice Oseman is about a person, Georgia, who realises that she is asexual over the course of the book. I think this is a very important book for people to read, and I would have loved to have read it when I was a young person. I am going to put it in So Close Yet So Far, I think, but I might rank it a little bit lower because it's not a book that I felt a need to keep on my shelves. I've sold it because I think put it out into the world and let other people read it. But I can really acknowledge that Alice is a great writer and she tackles really challenging topics for young adults, which I really like. But ultimately my favourite Alice is in graphic novel form. Then we have Skandar and the Chaos Trials. We're going to stick that up near the top of Great Time. As I say, love this series. This is number 3. Can't wait to read number 4. Then we have Those Summer Nights, which is the other book that I read on honeymoon, which is set in Greece. What is it about? I'm going to have to stick it in Did I Read This, I think, because I know I liked it more than the other one. Oh, no, I do remember. We have a woman who's working in a diner in the UK, living what is, quite a sort of sad, small life, and then her brother, who's just split up from his wife, decides to move to Greece to open a restaurant and convinces her to go out to help him. When she's over there, she runs into this guy who's trying to basically like buy up all the Greek island that I think is it Corfu, I think. Yeah, he wants to like buy up all of the island basically, and they like bash heads, but she like has a really good relationship with his grandma, and so that's all really cute. Yeah, no, it's fine. I remember this was a good time. I honestly think I might put it, as she says, having just remembered what it was about. But, again, if you asked me to reread a book in that list, I think that's where it would fall. And we have Blessed, Volume 1, which is a graphic novel about a person who, it's like online dating but with Greek gods or just gods generally, and I remember it was good, but I don't really remember what it was about. Maybe I'll put it at the top of Did I Read This. Some of the graphic novels have not stayed with me this year. I think I read them all in a day as well, and that was maybe where all of this went wrong. And we have Starfire, which was my 100th book, which is the 5th book in the Teen Titans graphic novel series. This is a great series, which is a rewriting of the Teen Titans brought into the modern day. The characters are great, the art is beautiful. This one, I'm gonna put it maybe at the top of So Close Yet So Far, because I did only give it 4 stars, but it's a series that I love. It's a 5-star series for me. It's just I don't necessarily give every volume 5 stars. But I would really recommend it if you have any interest in superheroes and you like graphic novels. This is a series that's really, really up there in ones I recommend. Then I have Mary Poppins, which I listened to on audio because it was on sale and it's narrated by Olivia Colman, so I picked it up. I didn't rate it though, because I felt that it was weird to rate it. But to be honest, I think I'm actually going to put it in disappointed because I obviously like the film. It's not like my favourite film by any means, but I like the film and I really like Saving Mr. Banks. I much prefer that actually to like the Mary Poppins movies. The audiobook, it's of its time, and I struggle a bit with books of its time that say things in ways that make me uncomfortable. So whilst I didn't rate it on Goodreads, I think I can acknowledge that this is probably where it sits in my actual rankings. Then we have 12th Night by Alexin Farrell-Folmuth, who is Olivia Blake. This is a YA romance, and her first one, My Mechanical Romance, is absolutely one of my favourite books of all time. Like in like my top 5 books or something. Like I genuinely love that book. So I was hoping to like 12th Night as much, but I did not. But I think I would still rate it very highly. Like I would rate it, I think, above all of these, I think. Maybe not The Man Who Died Twice, but like I would still rate it very highly. In this one, we have a female main character who has like a lot of rage and is she's a real like force to be reckoned with, and a lot of the story is about like giving females space, like giving women space to be who they are. And so I think that's a really important message, especially for YAs, which is who is the target audience of this book. And then the guy that she is falling in love with, she does not get on with him in real life, but he's a football player. He has an accident and he has to, you know, spend some time like on his own, like at home doing nothing. And so his best mate gets him logged onto a new video game, and then he ends up meeting the female character in the online world, but she plays as a man because she doesn't feel, you know, there is like space for a woman to play in this game. So it's a really interesting idea. It's just, I just didn't love it as much as My Mechanical Romance. Then we have Degrees of Engagement, which is a fake engagement between a woman who finishes her PhD, and she's so excited to finish it, and she's like the person that celebrates all of her friends' major achievements, like their weddings and their kids. And then when she finishes her PhD, none of her family even react, and a fellow student feels, he's, you know, been in love with her forever, of course, and feels awful for her, and so he agrees to fake date her as a like one night joke, so that Bianca can like prove to her friends, well, you know, you clearly don't care about me because you were willing to like drop everything to come and celebrate this engagement, but not come to my PhD party. Yeah, this was quite a fun time. Maybe I'd put it at the top of fine. It's not a book that I would necessarily choose to reread, but it was good and the cover's beautiful. Then we have Tangled Up in You, which is my favourite book of 2024. I forgot what year we're in. 2024. I talk about this book all the time. It's a Rapunzel retelling by Christina Lauren, and it's fantastic. If you like Tangled and you like romance books, you will, I think, love this. And Fitz are beautiful retellings of kind of like Rapunzel and Flynn in the modern day. We have a lot of references to the Disney film. The Snuggly Duckling scene is great. It's a wonderful like road trip romance. It's stunning. I love it. I don't need to talk about it anymore, just read it. And we have The Last Devil to Die, which is the final book so far in the Thursday Murder Club. So I'm gonna stick this, you know, I can acknowledge the book is well written, but I'll kind of stick it middle of the road. Then we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab. This book took me a long time to get through. I started on audio and then I had to switch to physical, and that was definitely better, and I do have a stunning edition for this. This is about Addie, who is being forced to marry someone she doesn't want to marry, and so to get out of that she basically makes a deal with the devil, and he says you'll live forever but nobody will ever remember you, and like every day her life resets, and the people that she's with don't remember her, so she can't have a home, she sort of has to, like, to be honest, sleep her way around to just have somewhere to stay, and then she just quietly leaves every morning, and she'll never die, and this is her entire life until one day she meets a guy who maybe does recognize her. It's a really interesting book. It's very lyrical writing if you like that sort of thing. I'm gonna stick it maybe at the bottom of A Great Time because as I said, it did take me a while to get through, but was enjoyable. Then we have In the Weeds by B.K. Borison, which is the second in the Love Light Farms quadrilogy. I don't think that's the word. I wish I loved these more, but there's something about B.K. Borison's writing that just doesn't sit well with me. I guess I'll stick it at the top of fine. I remember bits of it. It's Layla, so I remember her name, so that's progress. Don't remember the guy's name, but they basically have like a night of passion in the first book, and then, you know, but they don't see each other again, and they're like pining for each other, and then they come back together, but they don't really realise the other one's pining for them. But yeah, I wish I loved these more. Then we have the Tea Dragon Society, which was my first read of 2024, which I gave 5 stars at the time. I think because I really got into my head, because Meg with Books does this, where she's like, my first book of the year has to be a 5-star or I'm going to have a terrible reading year. So I rated it 5 stars, I think, because that got in my head. It's not a 5 stars. I'm going to rate it 4. I'm going to stick it maybe around there, like still a great time. And it is really cute. It's got beautiful art, and it's basically about these characters who have tea dragons. I don't really remember what happens, but it's very cute. I did a spread for it in my reading journal because the art is so beautiful and the tea dragons are so cute. And it is a middle grade story, so, you know, it's quite like low level drama, like cozy fantasy vibes. It was very cute. I would like to continue the series, but it just isn't a 5-star yet. Then we have The Many Lives of Layla Starr, which is about this person who dies multiply and comes back. I think it's a graphic novel. Again, I read like 8 in a day. I guess I'll stick it in Did I Read This, because I don't really remember what happened, and I know that I didn't love it as much as I expected, so I guess we'll put it there. Then I have Go the Distance, which are these like YA, I think, Disney retellings, or like being like, what would happen if. So this one is like, what would happen if at the end of Hercules, Zeus doesn't let Hercules and Meg move to Mount Olympus together, and Meg has to go back to the human world. And then in this one, she like makes a deal with Hades to like try and do something that would then mean like she can become a god or something like that. Yeah, this was a fun time. I'll put it in So Close Yet So Far, maybe there. Yeah, I think there. Then we have Murder at the Village Church by Victoria Walters. I didn't realise I finished a series with this, but that was great. This is a cozy mystery series set in like a small town in the UK with this woman, Nancy, and her grandma Jane, who run a mystery themed bookshop, and then they end up getting involved in some mysteries themselves. The second one deviated from the main plot line, but 1 and number 3, like, you could probably just kind of read them together, though there are characters from number 2, so I think you probably do need to read them all. But like number 1 and number 3 have kind of the same mystery arc, which I really liked. It was like fun to get back with the characters. There were hints at romance in this one, which is actually how I like know Victoria as an author is. I've read some of her romances, and I was gutted, to be honest, that we didn't get more of the romance. Like, if you like a very low stakes cozy mystery, I really think this series is for you, but I just wanted some romance in there. So I'm gonna put it in fine, but I think kind of there. Am I going to put it higher than Richard Osman though? Let's maybe move Richard Osman, especially as this one has the plot line where there's like a real look at dementia, which is really well handled. So I think that should be higher. Then we have Daisy Jones and the Six, one of my favourite books of all time. I love this. Oh, now I have to decide whether I like it more than Yellowface. I hadn't thought about this, friends. I think I probably do, but they're really on par. Daisy Jones and the Six is like a sort of fake biography about this band called the Six, who are forced to work with Daisy Jones to keep their success. And it's on audio, it's a full cast audio. I felt like I really knew the band members. It's messy, characters don't necessarily get a happy ending. It spans a long time, so we lose characters. It's so good. This is, in my opinion, Taylor Jenkins Reid, best work, and I hope that I will like the Amazon TV series as much as I like the book. And we have Lore Olympus Volume 5, which I'm going to stick up in a great time. Maybe here. I really love the Lore Olympus series. It's a Hades and Persephone retelling set in the modern day. It's beautiful, the art's stunning, it deals with really difficult themes, but I really like those. My only negative comment is that I think there's so many characters, it's a bit hard to follow, so I did have to like print out a family tree to help me with reading it, but it's a series I love. If somebody asked me what my favourite series are, I think Lore Olympus would definitely be up there. Then we have Lumberjanes, which I didn't rate, but I'm going to put it in disappointed. Again, this is one of those where it's a middle grade, so I didn't want to rate it on Goodreads because it just didn't feel fair, but in my rankings I was disappointed that I didn't love it. This is about some characters who are at a summer camp, and then there's like some mysterious goings on, and they then have to kind of work out what's happening. And I don't know why I didn't like it, but it's got like 1 million in the series, and so I thought, well, I'm not going to bother carrying on if I didn't love it. So I was really disappointed to not enjoy it. We then have Flawless by Elsie Silver, which my reading experience of this was one of my favourites of the year. This was the first book I ever tabbed, and it looks stunning with all my beautiful pink tabs in it. So I'm going to rate this one really highly, to be honest. I think I only gave it 4 stars, but my experience of reading it was so fun. But I don't really remember what happened though, so actually it's probably got to go lower. But this is a cowboy romance. It was a really good time. I think some of it felt a little bit problematic, but I still really enjoyed it, and I'm really excited to read the rest of the series. I have bought the Fairy Loot special editions of this, which is so unnecessary, but they're so cute. So I need to try and like get on with this series to make sure I really love it to own 2 editions of it. Then we have Where the Dark Stands Still by, is it BK Poronek? This is a really good fantasy story about it's a kind of like Beauty and the Beast retelling about somebody who's like forced to live somewhere working as like a maid in this house, but there is a person there who maybe has some secrets hidden, and they've got to work out what's going on there. This was really good. I really enjoyed this one, and I like hadn't heard anything about it, so I think I'm gonna put it, I remember less about it than I do Addie LaRue, so I think I'll put it at the bottom of Great Time, but I would really recommend this. Then we have North Ranger, which is a graphic novel retelling of Northanger Abbey, which I have not read, and the colour scheme of this is beautiful. It's like all browns. It was scarier than I thought it was going to be, which is because I haven't read the original. So I'm going to have to stick it in Did I Read This? But again, I gave it 4 stars because I really enjoyed it at the time, but I don't remember what happened. But it's one where like there's some of those graphic novels that I would unhaul. This one I don't think I would. I think I would reread it to remind myself what happened. Then we have I Think Our Son Is Gay Volume 3. This is a really cute manga series about a guy, a boy who doesn't realize maybe that he's gay, and his mum has worked it out. But I think it's set in Japan, where the culture is, you know, you can't really necessarily be publicly gay, and so she's working out like, do I tell him, what do I do about it? His dad is quite homophobic, so how does she deal with that? I liked this one the least in the series, but I don't really remember why, so I think I will just put it at the end of So Close Yet So Far. But I own number 4 in the series and excited to get to that. Then I have Meet Me in Hawaii by Georgia Toffolo. This is the second in the Meet Me series, which are about 4 friends who are linked together by like this major accident that happens to them in 6th form. And then it's kind of dealing with each of the friends as they like find themselves again as adults. I don't think these are the best written books ever, but I think they're a really good time. I really enjoy them, and I've bought the second 2, like the number 3 and number 4. So I'm probably going to have to put it quite high, to be honest, in a great time, because it's a series I'm like really keen to read the rest of. Then we have The Fine Print by Lauren Asher, which did disappoint me, but I'm going to put it, I think, at the top of fine, because it's definitely better than the disappointed books. This is like a Disney retelling almost of basically like what if Walt Disney had kids that were like running the theme parks. And in this one we're following like the brother who sort of like runs the parks, even though he doesn't really want to. I think he really wants to run like Disney Plus, but he's been moved over to like run the parks, and he has no ideas for like what he wants to do to the parks, but that's like one of the conditions of him getting his inheritance from his granddad. And then he meets this girl Zara, who he realizes has some really good ideas for what to do with the park, so he hires her as like an Imagineer, but then they clash a lot even though they're really attracted to each other. And I've said it before, I don't like a toxic relationship, and that's what I felt this was, unfortunately. So I wasn't going to continue with the series, but I do have the second one on Kindle, so I guess I'll read that at some point. But I needed to read this to check I didn't want to buy the Fairy Loot special editions, and as gutted as I am, because I think that those books are like 10 out of 10 beautiful, I've let it go. Then we have Next of Kin by Hannah Bonham Young, one of my favourite books of this year. I think I'll put it there. This is about Chloe and Warren, who are both children that are like products of the care system, but are now adults. They both want to have custody of their siblings, but they can't unless they can prove that they are financially stable. And so they are, by social services, convinced to live together. And it's about them kind of like working out how to be this new family dynamic. There's really good representation in this, especially for a deaf character, which is a particular interest of mine. Really enjoyed this. Very excited to read more books from Hannah Bonham Young. The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I did not realise I read this year. It was one of the first books I finished. And this, I listened to this on audio over a long period of time, because my goodness, does this book drag. And it's basically about this character who's like constantly reborn each night, or every time they're killed. And they are trying to work out who murdered Evelyn Hardcastle in order to like be freed from like the curse of this house, I think is what it's about. I'll put it in fine, but like I remember more of it than some of these other books. But like this is not a book I necessarily enjoyed, but I could see why people would enjoy it. I'll stick it there. Then we have The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. I love this book. I just finished it. It's my most recent 5-star. Do you know what though? I might put it at the end, because my reading experience of this was disrupted. I got very sick when I come back from honeymoon, and I'd read 50% of this on that day when we were flying back, and then I got really sick, and then it was like looped into being triggering when I was unwell, so I've only just finished it. So I'll put it at the end, but this is a great book. I think if you like Legends and Lattes, you would really enjoy this. I didn't like Legends and Lattes, but I think these books are similar. This is a cozy romantasy where we have Hart, who is like a lonely marshal, really, really genuinely very alone, and Mercy, who works from undertakers, who has quite a rough deal with her workplace. They do not get on in real life. They have a spat that kind of then, when Hart's feeling really lonely, he writes a letter just addressed to a friend, and then it ends up being sent to Mercy. They become friends as pen pals, but still don't like each other in real life. It goes from there. A really good book, and it's a really interesting world where Megan just has you just come with her and you have to just move through it even though she doesn't explain anything. Then we have The Bullet That Missed by Richard Osman. I'm just going to put these two together, I think, in fine for reasons I've already explained. Then we have The Beast's Tale, which is a manga retelling of Beauty and the Beast. And I guess I'll stick it, I don't know. This one was like a little bit better than the Belle one, but basically the art of these, especially the Belle one, was like really blurry. I think where they'd like blown up the drawings into quite a large manga, and I was like, how are they selling this for like 20 quid a book? So I was just annoyed about it because of that. But the Beast's one is more interesting than the Belle one because you do get like the Beast's point of view, but I still don't think I could unfortunately recommend these. We're on the final row. So A Brush with Love by Maisie Eddings. I've recently read this. This was a good time. It's about a couple of dental students. One of them is a really good student, one of them is struggling, and it's about their kind of romance developing over the course of the academic year. Yeah, this was a good time. It's not my favourite ever. I think I'll maybe put it okay, it's going up the list though. I remember a lot less of it than I do 12th Night, but I rated it higher than 12th Night. I don't know why I put myself through doing these ranking things. I actually hate ranking things like this, so take this with a grain of salt, honestly. Then we have Caraval, which is by Stephanie Garber. It's a fantasy trilogy, but I've only read the first one. About, is her name Scarlet? I think it's Scarlet. Who sister Donatella escapes their abusive dad, and then she goes to chase him, and they go to Caraval, which is basically like a magic festival. It's really fun. I'm going to put it up in a great time because I'm so interested to see what happens with the series from here, but I've been told it gets better from here, and I'm excited to see what happens. I think we need to go higher with that though, actually. Maybe there. Let's also maybe do a bit of swapping around here. Maybe. And we have Marriage of Convenience, which is about a marriage of convenience. This was fine. I don't remember a lot about it, but it was fine. I'll stick it like there. Then we have Mistletoe Motive, which I read recently, which is a novella by Chloe Leese, which has really good representation, I think, for autism in different varieties. Unfortunately, I just like didn't love it. There was a lot of miscommunication in this. There's a lot of like third act breakup drama, which in a novella I'm just like not particularly interested in. So I'm gonna stick it in fine, but I can acknowledge that it was like quite well written. So I'll put it maybe there. Then we have Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is another great book. I think I'll maybe put it like around where Malibu Rising is. It's basically about like a tennis star whose career is kind of ended, and then it's about her like working her way back up to being a tennis star. It really relies on you knowing a lot about tennis, which I do not. So that is a caveat there. But again, with other TGR books, I felt like it was really real. Like I felt I really knew Carrie Soto and her dad and the guy that she's seeing. So really enjoyed that. Then we have Ellie Pillai is Brown. I might have to put this in Did I Read This, because I don't really remember what happened. I know I was disappointed by it. It's a YA book about a character called Ellie. It has beautiful sprayed edges, the edition that I have, but I think she fancies a guy at school, and it's about her like realizing she can be herself and the guy will still like her. Then we have Book of Dust by Philip Pullman. This is the first book in the La Belle Sauvage series. I listened to this on audio, which was it was a fun time, and I love the Northern Lights trilogy. It's like one of my favourite series of all time. This was my first time reading La Belle Sauvage. I didn't enjoy it as much, but I still think it was a good time. And I think I'll put it, maybe there. Then we have Love Light Farms. I'm just going to put it around In the Weeds for the same reasons I've already spoken about. I liked this one more than In the Weeds, but even then, I think that's probably where it belongs. Then we have Rent to Be, which was a novella, which I think I'll put maybe at the end of So Close Yet So Far, because I rated it highly at the time. It dealt a lot with like the issues of like kind of not having enough money to buy property and things like that, but I don't remember much more about it than that. But I'll put it in there. And then last up, we have A Little, you can tell I'm getting tired. Then we have A Little Magic, which I really enjoyed. I gave this 4.5 stars. This was a really lovely book, but I'll maybe put it around there. But this was a really lovely book about some friends. This girl who has a chronic illness that means her mum basically like won't let her out or let her do anything. Her brother's best friend like immediately like gets on with her, and every year he buys her a snow globe, and they're like really, really good friends. And then we're kind of a flitting back between modern day and the past, where we realize that they don't get on in modern day times. So like what happened in their childhood that meant that they stopped speaking to each other, and then this is about like them rekindling their friendship. So it's like a friends to lovers, but like a second chance romance. I thought it was really well done. It was a really beautiful book. Really enjoyed it. A very tired editing cat here. That was such a long one to edit, but I have actually edited the order of some of these slightly since filming this. I had to print off all of the book covers for these for my 2024 reading journal, where I'm doing some wrap-up pages, and as I was doing that, thought a bit more about some of the books that should move around. For example, I split up the Scandal books. Number 3 was just a lot better than number 2 for me, so I moved that down. I did split up the Worst Witch books because I felt that actually number 1 and number 4 are a lot stronger, and there were other books that deserved to be further up in the list, so I moved those around. I think I moved A Little Magic higher as well. I think there were a few others that I moved where I just felt like I just hadn't been as fair as I should have been to the books on where they belonged. I've also think this is more useful for you now that I've done it with the full covers. It was too hard to film with the full covers in there. I would have been scrolling up and down too much, but hopefully this way you can actually see all of the books and see which ones they are, and you know, check any out that you would be interested in. So there we have it, friends. Those are my 100 books ranked. I'm not sure that that is the perfect ranking, but my throat hurts so much because this is the second video I've recorded today, so we're going to leave it there, and that's what we're going to say is my definitive ranking for 2024. I hope that you enjoyed this video because it was so long. If you did, I would really appreciate if you could give it a like, and if you haven't already, I would love it if you'd subscribe. I'm really excited about my reading for 2025. We've got a lot to come. We've got more reading journal content, more reading vlogs, and if you haven't seen it already, I do have a new TBR bingo game based on the Disney princesses, which is coming for this year, so do check that video out, and that will be how I do my reading vlogs in 2025, which I'm so excited about. And we'll see, hopefully I can have a better reading year, and like we could do without 3 rows of fines, really, couldn't we? So let's hope we can get more higher up in my rankings for 2025. In the description, I will also have a link to various favourite things, and I'll have a link to my Instagram and my Goodreads if you want to check out any more content from me. Otherwise, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!